Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Come on in the room. We have a wonderful guest with us today. Her name is Dr. Jeanette Kowalik. She is amazing. You're going to love the story she's going to tell you today. She's done a lot in such a small amount of time. But for those of you that don't know a little bit about Leaders Lead Up, I just want to share this platform is a labor of love for me. It is a platform that brings women together from all walks of life. And this live stream is only one way that we share information with you. I call these live streams leadership development sessions. They're free leadership development sessions because you're learning from some of the best CEOs, entrepreneurs, and leaders across the nation. So come on in the room, share your name and where you're from. We love to hear from you while we just pause here and allow others to enter the room. Dr. Jeanette, you want to shout out and say hello to the guests, to our guests?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I know it's lunchtime for many of you, so thanks for joining.
Yes, come on in the room, share your name, where you're from. Let's see, I'm putting this in here. We are tracking all of your comments on all three platforms. And so I'll be navigating a couple different sites. So bear with me a moment here. I'm going over to LinkedIn now to check. And if you want to check and share that for me, Dr. Jeanette, please do. On all three platforms. And so I'll be navigating a couple different sites. So bear with me a moment here. Hey, Delois. Thanks for warming up. Thank you for joining us on your lunch break. I see that you're out on a lunch date. I hope you're eating at someplace really great. Houston has some great food. Somalia.
Looks like we're all set.
Somalia Jolly from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Welcome. Is it Samela? I want to get your name right. It's Samela. I can see it. Oh, forgive me. That's my eyes. I need my glasses on, Samela. Come on in the room. Join us. Tell us where you're from. Keep on coming. So if you joined us last month, we had several live streams with women in tech. We actually are going to bring in, it's Samela. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you for correcting me. So yeah, if you joined us last month, we had several women in tech, and we will be revisiting more conversations with women in tech. I have a long list of women on my waiting list that we were going to bring to the table, but we wanted to take a short break and introduce you to the amazing Dr. Jeanette Kowalik. I had one of the best conversations with her. I didn't even want to get off the phone. We could have talked pretty much for 3-4 hours last night. So I just want to thank her for taking the time out of her busy schedule to be with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about her journey, some things she did while she was in Milwaukee. She doesn't live in Milwaukee anymore, but she travels the globe. I mean, sharing her expertise and knowledge across the healthcare industry. And so I was just impressed by her story and everything that she's done. And I know that you're going to be impressed as well. And so it is now 12:35. And like you all know, I like to stay on time. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to have Dr. Jeanette go ahead and share a little bit about herself with our audience. Welcome, Dr. Jeanette. Uh-oh, I think you're locked up. Can you hear me? Okay, I think your live stream locked for a little bit. Can you hear me, Dr. Jeanette? Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Your screen is locked up though, but I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, about that. I don't know, mercy of technology these days, right?
Yeah, so go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, thanks, Jeanette. And For those that don't know, our name means God is gracious or God is grace. So I honestly feel like that's been how I've operated over the last 20 plus years as a public health professional, as an educator, as a mom, as a lover, as an artist, everything that I've had the ability to touch. So I'm very thankful, and I give full glory to God for the opportunities that I've had in this short amount of time. But I'm from Milwaukee, born and raised, Sherman Park. For those that don't know, I currently live in Chicago, Illinois. My mom lives here, so being close to the parent that I have left is really important to me. But just being back in the Midwest is great. I love Washington D.C. There's a lot of opportunity there, but one of the pluses because of the pandemic has been a lot of things have shifted to the virtual format or setting. So I'm able to do a lot of work from pretty much wherever. Jeanette, you can relate that having the ability to do things virtually has been a big plus for us, especially as small business owners. We've been able to accomplish so much more just from setting up shop, whether it's a coffee shop, our home office, or on a plane or train or wherever we are. So just really grateful for the opportunity to maximize this situation that we're in, COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, welcome. So I'm going to dive right in, and thank you so much for that introduction. And I just hopefully one day you will be back with us in Milwaukee. I mean, I just say when we lost you, we lost a jewel. And so, but I don't know if you ever want to come back, but it would be great for us. But I wanted to go ahead and dive in and talk about the first question on our list here, which is your greatest industry challenge. Now, we've talked about a whole lot. I mean, from you handling the entire rollout of the procedures and process of our COVID, for our COVID-19 pandemic. I don't even know what you want to call it, prevention program, everything. Like you rolled out everything. Like I don't know how you did it. All I'm going to say is you did an amazing job, top down. I mean, when that pandemic hit, the Milwaukee Health Department just pulled together and you guys laid out guidelines. You set up websites, giving us protocol, processes, procedures. You worked with all the health departments. I mean, wow. That's all I got to say is wow. So, when we talk about your greatest industry challenge across the health industry and what you've been doing for 20 plus years, where do you want to start? That's what I want to know.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate the flowers that you're giving me right now. And, when we talked last night, I acknowledge that. Like, I was shocked that I did receive so many flowers once I had resigned from the role. And normally you don't find out that people appreciate you and pay attention to your efforts until after you're not around, like, passed on, transitioning to the afterlife type of thing. So I was really grateful for that because if anything, it just really put things in a perspective for me. So just in a nutshell, managing the COVID-19 pandemic, using our racism as a public health crisis declaration as a way to try to save lives, Black and Brown lives in the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County was and still is the hallmark of my career. And I had no idea that was the reason why I was being called back to Milwaukee, as I like to say, Nineveh, because you know how it is in Milwaukee, like
Yeah.
it's our home, it's like where we have a lot of like pride, Milwaukee Bucks and all of that, but we know it is really difficult as a Black woman to navigate professional and personal spaces in Milwaukee. And when the opportunity came up for me to go back, when those conversations had started after Bevan Baker, who was a mentor of mine, some people don't know that, was removed from the health department and everything was just up in shambles. I was really comfortable in Washington, D.C. I had a good thing going on. I was working for the Association of Maternal and Child Health Programs. I had just moved. I had just started a new relationship. everything was going so smooth, and then that happened. And I was really questioning. I was like, Lord, do you want me to do this? Like, give me like a sign. And I kept getting all of these signs. And I was just so like afraid, irritated, happy, because I always wanted to be the health commissioner in Milwaukee. Like that was like a dream of mine. Then all of the other politics and drama surrounding the role. So I had asked the mayor's office, a lot of people don't know this, but I had asked if I could wait until the mayoral election of 2020 to come into the role. Like, thought was, all right, Dr. McManus was already in it. Things were already rolling. You already had Dr. Sanjeev Bhattacharya that was like the special deputy because they finally like legally had one. And it just, to me, I was like giving like free consulting to the city. Like, hey, you got people in place right now. Why don't you just stick with what you have, figure out the lead situation, get things kind of settled, finish the investigations, then, have the election in 2020. And then I could wrap stuff up in DC and move to DC. And they were like, no, we need you now. So little did I know that was a divine timing thing because of the pandemic start. So, COVID started late 2019. So, it could have been earlier. But by being there and helping to get things reorganized, really that, slog of rebuilding the department, taking those hits in the media and from the community, trying to get things, we needed it to be. We were in a good position once the pandemic started to really make sure equity was central to what we were doing. And because we prioritized that brought national attention to COVID. Because if you recall, early on, the focus was just people that were traveling overseas to those countries that they considered to be problematic, Iran, China, Italy, so on and so forth. But then once we started seeing cases in the United States, I was like Washington State. And then in Wisconsin, it was like Madison. So it was like, oh, if you're like a, affluent, well-to-do person that could travel overseas, you really need to worry about this. But everybody else, you don't need to worry about it. Kind of like other, situations like Ebola and other things that we had to worry about. But once we started seeing it in southeastern Wisconsin, that's when like everything kind of just went loose. Things happened so quickly. So, I also want to just shout out Dr. Georges Benjamin as a mentor of mine as well. He's the president of the American Public Health Association. But he was one that was really stressing, like, look, when COVID comes to Milwaukee, you're not going to get any rest. It's going to be nonstop. You just have to be ready. So he's really clear about it. And I really appreciated that, like, priming to not like get lax or like, oh, well, the state's going to handle it. Because that was the game plan. The state was going to handle it. And then once it came to our area, it was all, hell broke loose.
Right. So, I mean, when you first got that call about the fact that, it's here, it's in Milwaukee, what did you do? I mean, how do you respond to something like that and someone in a role like yours? How do you respond to that? We have a pandemic in our city.
Yes. Well, first off, I used to like jokingly say, we're trying to rebuild the department. Hopefully we don't have a pandemic or outbreak or anything major happens until we get it and where it needs to be. But, Murphy's Law, that was not the case. COVID started. And because it like was not only a city issue, it was a county issue. There's multiple health departments in Milwaukee County. Once the emergency declaration was made, which was literally like the same day, that was March 13th of 2020, then I became in charge of not only the city, but the county. So I had to deal with all of those dynamics of the county, suburban drama, energy, just being honest, and then the city. So it was like this whole, like, I'm responsible for 600,000 people roughly. Now I'm responsible for 1 million people. Wow. With the same resources, the same pay, the same, we only vacancies because we were in the process of reorganizing, and I just had to like get things somewhat situated to keep things.
Okay, wait, I have to back up. Wait, you just said something so powerful. You said the pandemic hit, but and you had to now oversee 600,000 people, but with the same resources.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changed on your end. No
No.
more financial support. Like at that point, you had none of the resources you needed to respond to a pandemic, but you still had to pull it together, lay out a
Yes.
plan, find the resources and the people to help you. People that were knowledgeable. Let me break this down for a minute because you're not breaking it down. Like I need you to break this. Listen, I need people to understand what you did. You found the resources, you laid out the processes, the procedures. You had to go find people with expertise of handling pandemics because I promise you, I know I'm not even in the health industry, but I know you didn't have those people on your team.
Because
Like,
that's another thing.
like,
Like recruiting talent is a big issue for any government agency. It takes a long time. Just thank you, Jeanette, for even stressing that, because when you reflect on all of the uh,
yes,
bananas, monkey wrenches, like all of the things that were being thrown our way, we still had to make it work. I mean,
yes.
there were going to be people that were not happy with our approach, our response. We weren't doing things fast enough. We were doing our level best. And that's just what it was at that time. Now, eventually funding came, but when it started, we didn't have anything. It was just kind of
No,
like, you know, IOUs, credit, like,
right.
what do we need? Like,
Yes. I
yeah,
remember the whole thing where everybody had to buy these masks and then they weren't available. We didn't have the proper masks. We were wearing the wrong masks. That whole situation as a constituent, like, I dealt with that. But like I said, the communications that went out, the explanations about things, it happened to me. It seemed fairly quickly. And so maybe for you it wasn't, but for me it seemed like, oh, okay, I can go here and find all the information I need because I'm a researcher. So I'm going to go and analyze the situation and figure out, okay, what do I need to do for me and my family? Because this is like, the revelation is here. Like,
yes,
this
there
is
was
the
so
end of
much
the world.
misinformation. Do you recall, like early on, there was like even on social media, there was like all of these memes and things of saying that Black people couldn't get COVID. And it was
Yes.
like, oh, we don't have to worry about that. And you're like, what? We're mammals. What are you talking about? And then when Black people start, because that was our first um, focus, middle-aged Black men in Milwaukee and where I
Yeah.
grew up were being hit hardest by COVID. People got really angry. They were like, they felt like we were like being deceptive. We weren't being, moving fast enough with information. We didn't have the resources. We were like, we're like other cities across the country did not even have that level of information, even make those connections. We were way ahead of the game. So there were a lot of people that worked behind the scenes, like at the county, some folks at the city that were able to like help us move things forward.
Mhm.
And it was like a lot of like innovation that rarely happens, it being
Rarely happens.
it's
Yeah.
like you gotta like do something and then try it and then apologize for trying it because you're like, well, I didn't know there was a process or a procedure,
Mhm. But
But
you know what it proves? What's interesting is that it really proves that we come together. Milwaukee comes together as a city when they need to, right?
yes, yeah.
Like in the middle of any sort of crisis, the people come together
Hmm.
regardless of political affiliation, regardless of religious affiliation or association. I mean, it's just we come together and we make it happen. It's amazing how we can do that in crisis, but we can't do that when we really need to, right? When there is no crisis. Like, why does it take so long to do everything when there's no crisis? But then when there's a crisis, we find a way to make it
Yes,
happen. Wouldn't we be
yes.
more productive if we could just operate that way?
I agree. And now that we're not in emergency mode, people have really kind of, well, even through that, I think a lot of people really showed their true character. Like you're saying, some people really stepped up and were amazing and wonderful. And some people just really showed that the veneer came off and that they're really like self-centered and horrible people.
Mm,
And it just really like, just honoring all of those people that have passed away from COVID, all of those people that have
yes.
long COVID, all of those people that
Mm,
have new health conditions from having COVID. Like
Yes.
we are really like in a state of perpetual grieving, right?
Mm,
Like there's
mm.
like violence is up, you know, people are struggling to meet their needs financially, mental health, and just you name it. But a lot
Yeah.
of those policies that kind of were like used for the pandemic response, like eviction moratorium, stimulus payments, student
Mm.
loan for freeze. You know, there's so many great policies that were the sick leave, the 40 hours of sick leave for people. And there were
Yes.
a lot of things that showed promise. And now that we're not in emergency anymore, they've been removed, right?
You know, I'm sorry, but I have to pause for a minute because as you're talking and I'm hearing everything you're saying, I feel like there's a book in your spirit for this. Like, because it is an amazing journey. Everything you had to do. So now you're bringing into the mix not just the hospitals and the healthcare organizations and departments, local government, national government, county government, but schools. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
that was the
schools,
schools is a whole nother.
institutions. I mean, just keep going down the list. Like if there was a checklist of every single location and organization that had to be checked off when the COVID processes and procedures were implemented, I don't even know what that would look like, but I'm sure it's huge, and I'm sure you probably had a checklist of
Yeah,
all the different touch points that had to be um, you know, resolved. I mean, all the touch points, all of the people that you had to pull to the table, the countless meetings and conversations about how to do this, what, when, how, all the things. And so when I tell you that was an amazing undertaking, it's a book. It really
thank
is. So you
you.
should really think about that, Dr. Kowalik. I mean, that would be an amazing book. I'll help you write it if you want.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So I did contribute a chapter to a book called Access Denied. My executive coach and colleague, Brenda Harrington, who is a soror of yours,
Oh,
had wrote
awesome.
this book because, you know, just trying to help women, just people of color in the corporate environment, you know, just all
Yes.
the things we deal with. So I contributed a chapter and I talked about just in a nutshell, very like, you know, 10 page,
High level,
pages,
yes,
kind of what it was about. And I included
yes,
some of the pandemic challenges in that. And, you know, just even writing that was just really therapeutic, but also emotional. And I'm glad you mentioned the book because it also, I've been wrestling with this because I'm a huge Tina Turner fan. So rest her soul.
oh, yes,
But one thing she said had always stood out to me when she wrote her book about her experiences and how she overcame her intimate partner violence is that people kept bringing it up, and she
mhm,
never really got to move on from that. You know, she married again, moved to Switzerland, all of the great things that she was able
yes,
to do in her career. But people kept, "What about Ike? What about Ike?" And so I do
mhm,
feel like that about Milwaukee because it was a really traumatic experience. Even though I'm from Milwaukee, that
mhm,
it's like Milwaukee's like the what about Ike? It was really rough.
mm,
Even before the pandemic started, once it started, that was like on steroids. And
mhm,
I stayed as long as I could have stayed, like physically,
yeah,
disabilities and just everything. And I remember just asking God for guidance and deliverance. I was like, "You brought me here. I can't take this anymore. What am I going to
so,
see?" You know?
yeah, and so the one thing I don't want us to forget about is post-COVID, and the work that you're continuing to do. A lot of people have forgotten about it. Like you said, here we go. What about Ike? A good segue into that,
Mhm.
like the work you're doing post-COVID, but then also how you've been able to readjust yourself, your life after COVID, and I mean, I sound like you have COVID, you don't have COVID, but I'm just saying after the program, after
But
everything you've gone through, because to be honest, it's not even over for you. Like you're still
Mhm.
continuing the conversations, you're keeping the conversations going. People don't know that this is still going on, that people are still dying from COVID,
Yeah.
and I know we're almost running out of time, but talk about that. And then also just your self-care and what you're doing to take care of yourself because you're still leading up. You're still working. Everything you do is about leading up, working with organizations, sharing your knowledge, your skills about everything you did during the pandemic and beyond, even before the pandemic. So you're still leading up. it's who you are. But so let's talk about that post-COVID, and then share a little bit about self-care and what you're doing.
Yes, thank you for that. So, um, as I noted, being in the public facing role enabled me to develop a national presence. I
Mhm.
did like in maternal child health, but just all across the board as a public health professional. So that really teed me up to be a public health consultant. So I was able to transition from my last employer, Trust for America's Health. Shout out to them for being so supportive in my transition, but
Yes.
moving into a 100% consultant role has been amazing. So the types of work that I'm doing, policy development, systems change, workforce development, I'm still providing support on COVID-19. Like last week, I was in Charleston for the Medical University of South Carolina's annual conference talking about long COVID, because that's a huge thing. The government's putting some energy into it now. They're hiring an executive staff to address long COVID through the office of the Assistant Secretary of Health. So it's a thing, you know. So when people say, "Oh, whatever," no, it's a thing. I'm sure if you start asking folks, "Where did so and so go?" Maybe they're out of commission because they had long COVID. Maybe they were disabled. They can't really function anymore.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, I've been very grateful for the opportunity to provide consulting services nationwide. It's great. I have a staff of 2. Shout out to them for all of the support that they provide. But it enables me to really have a better balance, a work life balance. So, self care, I'm all about just using homeopathic types of remedies, Chinese medicine, in addition to Western. So I'm not one of those people that's like against using medications and vaccine. I'm very pro medication and vaccine, but knowing what's best for you and your genetic composition is really important. The other thing our business is moving into is more of like a fitness and wellness arm instead of just the public health. So, what are we doing for ourselves? How are we building up our temples? So, I recently completed my 200-hour yoga instructor certification. So, I'm going to move into providing yoga for folks, including
Congratulations.
you. But just, you know, doing all of the things that I've always wanted to do that I've put off because I'm so busy fixing other people's problems at a discount. And I'm done with that. I'm all about making sure that
Mhm.
I'm living in my purpose, that I'm charging what I'm worth. I have 20 plus years of experience. I'm a
Yeah.
doctor. And I'm just very grateful. So being able to afford all of those additional services, Reiki and massage and all of that has been such a blessing. So I'm in a good
Mm.
place right now, and I'm just grateful. So thanks for the
Wow.
opportunity to come on and support leaders leading up, and just keep up the great work.
Aw, thank you so much. And I'm just so excited about everything you're like I said, I really believe there's a book in your future. There might even be a facility, some sort of private practice in your future too. And so I'm just looking forward to all the things that are coming your way. I know God is going to continue to bless you and keep giving back like you're doing. It's such a blessing to be in your circle and to be, the other Jeanette in your life. And so, but
Yes,
thank you.
Jose.
I know. Yes. And so, in any case, do we have any questions? Is it Diani? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Diani said, "Bravo to becoming a yoga instructor." She's like cheering you on. Ah. That's
Oh,
your
thank
friend.
you.
Is it Diani or Diani? How do you pronounce it? Do you know? Is that your friend? I think it's Diani.
Oh, I can't see the name.
Dyani.
Dion
Dyani.
or
Yes.
Diani. Yeah.
Yes, Diani. There she she said correct. There she is. Yes. Okay,
Oh,
I
Diani.
just put it on the
Yeah.
screen for you. Yes. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I did want to share one thing with you. I have a
Mhm.
group that is out there. I have a new book club group, actually, a corporate book club group. That's why you see my sign in the back here, Unleash Your Greatness. My book, I have a new version of my book out. And so I have a couple of groups reviewing my book. If you want to go, not reviewing, reading and Yes, I guess they are reviewing it as well. But they've started a book club and currently purchasing a number of books. And there is an actual club on the Leaders Lead Up site. So if you have my book, or if you've purchased my book in the past, or if you haven't purchased it yet, you can go to my site, leadersleavinglegacies.com, purchase the book, and you can join our book club. I will be joining the book club periodically, having conversations with all of my readers. And so I'm just so excited to engage with more people around the topic of toxic leadership and really how to improve your communication skills. The name of my book is 10 Reasons Communication Brings Transformation. Unleash your greatness. And so if you haven't bought the book, go check it out. Again, on my website, and then also on leadersleadup.com, there's a new group for 10 reasons. And so thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. And until next time, goodbye. Let's lead up.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.